The main problem with this setup right now, we picked this up for 200 bucks. This is our old Ford 555 that we've been putting a ton of work into because we're just saving her from the scrapyard. She's turned out to be a fantastic tool. And one of the cool things we've done to it is, thanks to the help from Summit Hydraulics, we've got a third function diverter valve on this machine now, which means we can run third function implements, because I welded up my custom quick attach to go on the front of this, making this old antiquated dinosaur quite the useful tool for the homestead. But she's got some problems. The number one right now is it doesn't fit into here very well. We've got some welded repairs, some not so great, some actually pretty decent looking. You can see that. Some pretty heftily cracked sections that need repaired as well. And just not the best hose routing, especially considering these things flop back. That's between the machine and the attachment. 200 bucks is a pretty good head start on a grapple unit for this old backhoe. But we got our work cut out for us to make it something that we can actually use on a regular basis reliably. We're gonna see if we can't solve some of these problems today. So it was a subscriber named Brett who hooked us up with this. His neighbor was selling it. I think he said his neighbor paid about $2 grand for it. And you can tell his neighbor just ran her through the paces, decided it was too light duty after all the repairs he had to keep making. And he bought a different one, a heavier duty one, and just wanted this one gone. But in the process of making those repairs, I think, if you look right here, see how that's bent down? My bracket won't get all the way up in there enough that it locks in very securely on the bottom here. So I got a bottle jack rigged up on some cribbing with a little wedge to change some angle, hoping we can get that to bend up. This piece of cribbing at the very bottom goes through the actual implement, so it should hold it down. Otherwise we'd just be rolling the thing. That's not sketchy. Slowly making progress here. Can you see one of the problems with the hoses there? They're just a little bit of an issue. I can't quite see all that well right now, but we're locked in fully on both sides now, which is a huge improvement because previously we were not. The other day when we were testing this out, we were barely clipped in here. Really running a heck of a risk, but that's what I went with. She fits in there pretty good now, all the way up against the tubing on the bottom, latch fully engaged. So that's good to go. I'm gonna run a weld right there to hold that. Went ahead and went and changed real quick. I didn't think hydraulic soaked pants was the best bet when we're gonna start doing a little bit of welding. Although shorts aren't the best bet either because the slag likes to go right there, you know, but it keeps a fella alive. Just a good clean ground. Now remember, I'm not a welder, I'm just a guy that owns one. That's what we ended up with there. So now that we actually have it so the grapple fits on the machine, crucial for operation, by the way. So glad we got that accomplished. These hoses are my next #1 complaint, especially when it comes to hooking and unhooking. Let's do some gandering and see what we come up with. hoping if we loosen these, we can shove them. Yeah, that's working really well to that side. These fittings are pretty beat up. Never failed anybody. Okay, all right. Just enough. Thinking. Let's get these cut off too. You know, let's get everything exposed. We're going to be replacing these hoses at some point. It's just not on the immediate agenda. I mean, even if they stick like that and they come back in there, it's still out of the way of that mechanism, which I think is, you know, important. Okay. I mean, that's a world of difference right there. And this is all clear. We'll give this the old spin. The only thing I don't know is what that fitting, if it's gonna rub on that. I don't think it will. So then those are up here out of the way of all that. That's an improvement for sure. Well, let's run this once and see what kind of interference we're gonna get from this to down. It's gonna bend that one pretty good. Maybe I need to, let's see something here. If I take these zip ties off so they can do what they want on their own, that'll take some of that pressure off like that. Whenever I take these to eventually get them replaced, if we shorten that length up so it takes some of that out, and then the only thing that hose is doing is just rolling a little bit, that would probably be the best bet. I think that simple swap for now though will get us by, and then whenever these will get replaced, look at these. See how far that's rubbed down in? It's from these. This is the next thing we're going to address. I like that this is here. It protects the cylinder and protects this fitting, which I have no doubt is a pretty pricey fitting. But what we're going to end up doing to keep this from getting bashed in as easy as it is, which it looks like it was getting bashed in on the previous machine, but we're going to bend it straight, and then we'll add a little bit thicker steel here to help this edge hold its shape. This is whatever, gets beat in, it gets beat in. But if we put a little bit of a rib on this, that should help us out quite a bit. But I prefer to just leave it connected and weld it where it's at. That way we don't have to fight things fitting as much. We'll just kind of get things bent back to where they need to be. I got some number 4 bar. I think I'm just gonna weld it, heat and bend, weld, bend. Same thing, just a double cage right there over that fitting. That'll work. Well, that's how these turned out. Now, I'm pretty happy with it. Be a good little cage over this, should help keep this solid on the back end, so hopefully it prevents it from deforming and coming down in that hose. And wherever we get those shorter hoses, that'll help quite a bit too. So what has happened, and I'm not 100% sure how the fella did it. Maybe he had big logs hanging just off one side or something like that. Who really knows? We've got this crack generated here and pushed in there. So that bracket's starting to break off of that. This one, we're past the starting point, you know? I don't know. Maybe a fella put those on there to limit how far back that cylinder can go. I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to read a fella's mind sometimes. I can't even read mine half the time. Pretty good sized gap there though. I'd like to get that back. Not necessarily perfect, but close. Using the power of the hydraulics would be the way to go, but that pulls back, which just lifts this up. So I need to get away, maybe a chain from the back to the front. Keep that wrapped with the leather. We'll clean that, reach in there best we can, run a pass around the back side, and then we'll just kind of have to work through the other problems. So I got some weld holding that on. I got the bottle jack underneath. We're going to try to bring each side up. I don't know if the hydraulic pressure on the grapple will be enough to hold it down while we press up with the jack. If not, we'll just throw the chains back on, and get that pushed up with the jack. What's happening is where the metal overlaps, it's kind of running into itself. So I'm going to try to beat this side down past it. So here's how we're looking. We pretty much got that all stitched and pieced back together pretty close to where it's supposed to be. That doesn't look awful. We got this big old gap underneath here yet I need to do something with. That was the worst side. I want to get it out of the way first. This side's not too bad. Let's take a gander. It just kind of broke right around the bracket. So I may just run some heavy passes here and then try to roll it back into there. I will say one of the best investments that I've done for the property and the homestead is getting that welder. The amount of things we're able to get for pretty significantly reduced costs because they're damaged and people don't want to mess with welding it or fabricating something to make it work. It's just been unreal, the projects we've been able to tackle. I mean, the road drag, the forks, the fork reinforcement, the quick attach on the bucket, repairing the front end of the 555, doing this with the grapple. I mean, just tons of projects we've been able to do that I would have had to either pay somebody to do or buy in good used condition, which, you know, we're not going to do that. A fella can't afford a backhoe that's not going to break in two. My budget's the getting ready to break in two kind. Definitely been nice to have the welder. That being said, it's got some issues right now, and I kind of got to try to figure out what's going on with that. Hopefully it's something we can repair, some wear items. I think it might just be low on some propane and the pressure's causing her to run not so great. I'm not 100% sure. But the welder is definitely worth it. So everything is at least reattached and somewhat put back together. This was a heck of a gap. We just filled it. I got it pushed as close as I could with the hydraulics, and then we just filled it. So the next step, what I'm going to do, we're going to cut a gusset that goes from there and angles down to there. The idea is that whenever that's pushing force on this, right now it's just trying to push through this whenever that pushes force on it. So if you got a log or something out here and it's pushing up this way, this is just trying to push through the steel. If I'm looking at this right, if I run a gusset from here down to this bend, then it's going to be trying to roll all the way into here. So that force will be distributed a little bit better. which should also help prevent the back from trying to roll up and rip out of there. Now that's what we're going to start with. We're going to put some gussets in here. We'll run that for a while. If we have any issues, we can always add some flat bar in the back and some flat bar on the bottom side for a little bit extra stiffening. You guys remember that wild time I decided to salvage a church for fun? Anyway, we got this steel left over from that. We're just gonna cut it out. Start off with a grinder, way too slow. Ended up going to the torch, seemed to work just fine. Got my little ankle protectors down there looking all, we're not gonna say professional, but you know, better than no ankle protectors. And then just took a flap wheel and kind of cleaned them up a little bit. We're gonna give them the old rattle can special here when this is all said and finished. So go ahead and get some of this surface rust off here. I'm not too worried about beveling it with the flap wheel because I cut a little bit of bevel into it whenever I was running the torch. And then we'll come over to the grapple, we'll get everything cleaned up on there and ready to weld. I know I'm running a little short on propane. I don't know if I have enough to run a solid weld down all of these, so we're just gonna lay in some heavy stitches, get them into place where it's functional, and then if we got some propane left over, we'll finish the weld. If not, we'll just have to pick up some more propane at some point and finish it out then. I'm gonna let those cool off. We had enough to get solid all the way around, except on the inside, you know, right there. A little tricky, but solid on both sides of that before the other one was put on, and then down both sides like that. I think that'll do what I need. Transfer that energy up to here or distribute it across here better instead of just putting it right there on that thin piece of plate. The curve is just bonus because the steel I used was curved and I didn't feel like cutting an extra straight line. Kind of fancy looking though. If you're trying to figure out where we're at on the property, we are on the Rock Bridge Road. Now last time we worked on the Rock Bridge, once we got the actual bridge itself done, we said we'd be back on this when things dry out enough. We're creeping up on June, if not in June already. So it should be drying out here before long. And that gets me excited because we're ready to get back on this thing. One of the reasons I wanted this grapple was for this project. We've got rocks over here that I need to pick up and move somewhere, and piles of brush along the way that whenever we cleared the road, we just kind of threw them to the side. So the hope is that with this grapple, this makes this work go a lot faster and easier. And I kind of want to just do a little bit of work out here real quick and see what happens. See this rock? This is a pretty good rock. Oh, a ratchet strap. Let's see if it'll pick up a pretty big rock. You know what? Well, that's what we got it for. Oh, okay. I mean, if we're, this is how we break it. This is the technique right here. Oh gosh. The surprising issue I have now is weight on the rear tires, which I've got this here adjustable counterweight. You know, we can swing a little more weight out if we need to. Let's try, let's adjust for the high side here, and we'll try again. We'll try to get that rock a little further in the bucket too. This is definitely how we break something. Okay. For some reason, we're leaking air. I still can't believe it picked that rock. Oh, not even a nut on that one. That's handy. All right, let's just go ahead and throw these into the woods as far as we can. That way it's a challenge to find them later. The handy thing about a loader is it comes with a jack. All right, we got that repaired. I guess we ended up blowing the tube out on the inside. That is fancy. Is she stable? No, not at all. We'll probably lay her down then until we can make her stable someday. Absolute tremendous amount of work to get these reinforcements and stuff on, and the work that we did to it. But the amount of work this is going to save me, leaps and bounds. I don't even know if that's the right phrasing, but it's going to save us a ton of work and make this machine way more productive. Still a few things we've got to get ironed out, but that'll come with use. This is going to be awesome. There's going to be some good videos come out of this. Probably some repair videos too.